In the glittering world of Hollywood, where the line between reality and illusion is often blurred beneath the relentless gaze of cameras, flashing lights, and carefully constructed press narratives, a storm was quietly brewing behind the seemingly perfect facade of two world-renowned stars preparing to unite their lives in what the media breathlessly labeled the wedding of the century, a moment destined to captivate millions, yet one that concealed beneath its glamorous surface a complex web of unspoken truths, unresolved emotions, and the lingering shadow of a love that had never truly died. For Sam Heughan, the charismatic Scottish actor celebrated worldwide for his role in Outlander and adored on red carpets as a man whose life appeared to have been stitched together in threads of charm and success, was about to wed Dakota Johnson, the elegant, poised, and fiercely independent actress, known to audiences as the face of 50 Shades of Grey, a union that promised headlines, fashion spreads, and endless adoration. Yet deep within Sam's heart there lived a quiet ache that no accolade, no applause, no new relationship could erase, an ache named Caitriona Balfe, the woman with whom he had shared not only years of screen time, but also an ineffable chemistry that audiences across the globe had felt in their bones, a chemistry that transcended script and direction and seemed to bleed into real life, convincing countless fans that what they were witnessing on screen between Jamie and Claire was not just brilliant acting, but the raw truth of two souls profoundly entangled. And though both Sam and Caitriona had denied the speculation in interviews with carefully rehearsed laughter and lighthearted dismissals, those who looked closely into Sam's eyes whenever her name surfaced could sense a depth that words failed to cover, the flicker of something eternal that could not be disguised. For Sam himself knew with devastating clarity that he had fallen in love with Caitriona from the very first days on set, when rehearsals dissolved into embraces that lingered longer than necessary, when their eyes locked not as colleagues, but as something far more dangerous. And though Caitriona had eventually chosen a different path, embracing her own family life and separating their private realities from the fictional bond that the world idolized, Sam had never truly let go. Instead, carrying her image within him like a wound that time could not cauterize, a presence that resurfaced in unexpected moments, when he laughed, when he cried, when he stared at the ceiling at night wondering why the heart refuses to obey reason. It was Dakota, luminous and warm, who had entered his life at precisely the moment when he had convinced himself that he must move forward, that he must silence the echo of the past and embrace a new beginning. And at first her laughter, her intelligence, her calm strength seemed to offer him a refuge, a reminder that life still had possibilities beyond the past, and together they created a picture-perfect romance that magazines devoured, publishing glossy photographs of them walking hand in hand, smiling at premieres, and speaking softly of each other in interviews. Yet for all the surface brilliance, a subtle fracture began to widen in the foundation, because every time Sam gazed into Dakota's clear blue eyes, the memory of Caitriona's gaze, deep, searching, unforgettable, would rise unbidden, whispering of a love that once dared to exist between fiction and reality. And though Dakota was no stranger to the complexities of human relationships, her instincts were sharp enough to feel the distance, the hesitation, the way his smile sometimes faltered when the subject of Outlander emerged, and she, being both strong and vulnerable, began to question quietly until one evening, as they sat together before the soft glow of a fireplace, Dakota turned to him with a voice gentle yet firm. "Sam, have you really forgotten Caitriona?" And in that suspended moment, he forced a smile, the weight of expectation heavy on his tongue, replying, "Dakota, you are my present and my future, and that's what matters." Words that soothed the air but did not soothe her heart, for she felt, beneath the eloquence, the tremor of evasion, and though she returned his words with a smile of her own, unease settled into her chest like a stone. The fragility of their union became unmistakably clear during what would later be remembered as the fateful interview, when Sam, seated in front of millions of viewers during a live broadcast, was asked once again about Outlander and about his connection with Caitriona, and for the briefest of moments he hesitated, the silence itself louder than any reply, before he spoke with a softness that betrayed the truth, saying, Caitriona, she will always have a special place in my heart. A confession veiled in diplomacy, yet searing in its honesty. A line that sets social media ablaze within seconds. Hashtags erupting. Hashtag Sam and Caitriona forever. Climbing to the top of trending lists worldwide, with fans dissecting his tone, his expression, his hesitation, convinced more than ever that the rumors they had whispered for years were indeed reality. Dakota, sitting at home, heard those words echoing through her soul like shards of glass, for no matter how much she tried to rationalize, no matter how she attempted to tell herself that love is complex, layered, imperfect, she could not escape the undeniable sting of being in second place in a heart she had believed was hers entirely, and that night, trembling with both hurt and clarity, she confronted him, her voice low yet charged with rawness. "You can lie to the press, you can hide it from the world, but don't lie to me. Tell me the truth, Sam. You still love Caitriona, don't you?" And though silence filled the room as though even the walls were holding their breath, the truth revealed itself in his eyes, glistening with tears he could no longer disguise, and after what felt like an eternity he nodded, whispering with broken honesty, "I tried," words that shattered the last fragile illusion of their engagement. In that single confession, Dakota knew what she had feared all along, that despite his effort, despite his affection, despite the life they had been building towards, Sam's soul remained tethered to a woman who had long since chosen another destiny, and though the press continued to spin tales of gowns, guest lists, and celebrity glamour, Dakota, dignified in her pain, quietly called off the wedding, sending shockwaves through Hollywood and leaving the world buzzing with speculation. Yet beyond the gossip and the spectacle, what endured was the timeless truth of human love, that fame cannot command the heart, that appearances cannot erase longing, and that some connections, however impractical, remain indelible, woven into the very fabric of a life no matter how...
Where do you think people go wrong with modern dating? We want advice from these three about something.
Where do they go wrong?
Every way.
Give some advice about how people can be better.
I wanted to forget, but I couldn't, because forgetting is not something that can be commanded by the intellect. It is something the heart either allows or stubbornly refuses. And in my case, Caitriona was a presence that clung to me like a second skin, a shadow in the background of every success, every smile, every carefully constructed illusion of moving on, and Dakota knew it. She could see it not only in the way my eyes betrayed me when her name was mentioned, but in the silence that followed, in the restless shifting of my body as though my very soul was trying to run from the lie I was telling, and when those words finally broke from my lips, uncontainable as a storm that crashes against the rocks no matter how hard one tries to build barriers, Dakota turned away with tears streaming down her face, not just tears of betrayal, but tears of recognition. Because deep down, she had always suspected that the ghost of Caitriona lived between us, seated invisibly at every dinner, lingering in the pauses of every conversation, haunting the promises we tried to make, and at that moment the dream wedding, the fairy tale ceremony that had been sold to the world through glossy magazines and whispered interviews, died silently before either of us admitted it aloud. And though decisions of the heart are often bitter when they intersect with the demands of fame, Dakota chose dignity over despair, issuing a brief but devastating press release the next morning in which she announced with simple words that carried the weight of finality. "My wedding to Sam Heughan is officially cancelled. I hope everyone respects this decision and gives us some space." And though the message was restrained, the effect was explosive, a detonation across the entertainment world. Newspapers seizing the story with ravenous hunger, headlines declaring, "Dakota Johnson calls off engagement to Sam Heughan because of Caitriona Balfe," as though the matter could be reduced to a single sentence. And in that reduction, the complexity of love, loyalty, and longing was sacrificed for the simplicity of spectacle. But that is the way of Hollywood, where every heartbreak becomes a public drama, a script written by circumstance and embellished by journalists, and soon the online community divided itself into warring camps, one faction hurling sympathy towards Dakota, praising her courage to walk away from a fractured promise, while another accused Sam of betrayal, a man who had chosen selfishness over commitment, and still another, surprisingly large, expressed a kind of perverse happiness because they believed that Sam and Caitriona were destined, that theirs was a love story interrupted but not extinguished, and now, perhaps cruelly for Dakota, it was finding its way back into the light. And as the chaos swirled, Sam sat in the storm, alone in his apartment, the wedding ring still nestled untouched in its box, a symbol not only of a broken engagement, but of the weight of expectations he could not carry, staring at it with a mixture of emptiness and relief, because while he had lost the image of stability, he had gained something rarer, the unshackled truth of being honest with himself, though honesty often feels more like salt on a wound than the balm we imagine. And in the quiet that followed, he was bombarded by the incessant ringing of his phone, messages piling in from the press eager for soundbites, friends attempting to console or chastise, colleagues weighing in with unsolicited advice. Yet none of these mattered to him because his soul was listening only for one signal, one vibration from the one woman who had always unsettled him, Caitriona, and yet she remained silent. No call, no text, only a void where once there had been warmth, and that silence carried more meaning than words, for silence can speak of hesitation, of fear, of unresolved love too dangerous to name. And a few days later, fate, or perhaps design, brought her into his orbit again when she flew to London to attend a film event, an appearance that on the surface was professional, yet in reality was another scene in a narrative that seemed to follow them no matter how far apart they drifted. And the paparazzi, those tireless sculptors of celebrity myth, captured the moment when Sam and Caitriona found themselves together backstage, smiling, speaking in tones too low for microphones to capture, yet their eyes betraying an intimacy no lens could fail to notice. And almost instantly the rumors reignited, fueled by speculation, commentary, and the insatiable hunger of an audience that feeds upon the love lives of stars as though they are communal property. And the question echoed everywhere: did Sam cancel the wedding with Dakota to return to Caitriona? Was this the rekindling of a flame thought extinguished, but in truth only hidden under the ashes? And while the world speculated, Sam lived the answer in his own body, feeling the familiar pull, the gravitational force that bound him to Caitriona against all reason. And in this realization, he understood that the old love had returned not because he summoned it, but because some loves never leave. They linger uninvited, awaiting only the right breath of air to stir them back into fire. And this time, though he knew that once more his life would be splashed across the front pages, dissected by critics and adored by romantics, he refused to hide, refused to deny, for there comes a moment when the burden of deception becomes heavier than the consequences of truth. And so, in an exclusive interview, he spoke with unusual frankness, words carefully chosen but unflinchingly real. "I apologize to Dakota for hurting her. She deserves a complete love. The truth is I have never forgotten Caitriona. I tried, but my heart does not listen to reason, and I choose to live true to myself." And Hollywood, a place accustomed to facades and strategic narratives, was stunned by this candor. Yet alongside the shock there arose a current of admiration, for courage often lies not in fighting battles with others, but in confronting the war within. And though many criticized him as selfish, many others praised his decision to reject a life built on compromise. For the reality of love is that it does not obey contracts, careers, or convenience. It arrives where it will and demands recognition. And in this revelation, the public was reminded that even their idols, adorned with fame and fortune, are still subject to the same chaos of desire, the same torment of divided loyalties, the same vulnerability of longing that ordinary people endure in silence. And the triangle of Sam, Dakota, and Caitriona became not just a tabloid story, but a mirror reflecting society's obsessions, its expectations of fidelity, its hunger for drama, and its contradictory celebration of those who dare to follow their hearts even when doing so means breaking another's. And as the weeks unfolded, the debates did not quiet, for social media transformed the affair into a theater where strangers staged their own morality plays, some insisting that Sam was a cautionary tale of male weakness, others holding him up as a romantic hero unwilling to deny his truth, while Dakota emerged as a symbol of self-respect, walking away rather than clinging to a man who could not give her his whole heart. And Caitriona, enigmatic as ever, was painted alternately as the homewrecker and as the true soulmate, though she herself remained silent on the matter, her only statements being the quiet dignity of her work, her poise on red carpets, her occasional smile caught between flashes of cameras, leaving the world to project its fantasies upon her. And perhaps that is the cruelest irony of fame, that your private entanglements are consumed by millions as though they are episodes in an ongoing series, while you yourself bleed in private, navigating choices that feel less like decisions and more like destinies unfolding. And for Sam, the path ahead was not one of peace, but of authenticity, a path often thornier than the one paved with compromise, yet also the only one on which his heart could breathe. And so the story, though painted by headlines as scandal, was in truth nothing more or less than the human condition unfolding in the glare of lights too bright to allow shadows, a reminder that love, once awakened, does not politely recede. It demands recognition, it disrupts, it divides, it destroys, and sometimes, if allowed, it heals, but only if those involved are brave enough to face the storm rather than hide behind the calm. Sam could no longer bear the weight of silence, and when he finally confessed that he had never been able to forget Caitriona, Dakota's eyes filled with tears, for she understood in that instant that their wedding dream had died before it even began. The next morning, with quiet dignity, she issued a press release announcing the cancellation of their marriage, and the news tore through Hollywood like a storm, the media branding it a love triangle that shook the industry, while the public split into factions, some standing firmly with Dakota, others condemning Sam, and many insisting that he and Caitriona were destined all along. And when the cameras later caught Sam and Caitriona speaking tenderly backstage at a London film event, the rumors surged once more, until at last Sam broke his silence in an interview, apologizing to Dakota and admitting that his heart had always belonged to Caitriona, choosing this time to live truthfully, no matter how the world might